Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Death Steals the Spotlight by T.C. Lotempio. Narrated by C.S.E. Cooney. 1.
Shell, dear, I need to order some of that shiny coat shampoo for my darling Priscilla. Oh, and by the way, is it true your mother's gotten Steven Spielberg to direct the Fox Hollow Players' fall production?
My hand paused in mid-air, and I nearly dropped the pencil I was holding. The woman at my counter was Minerva Sparks, assistant librarian at the Fox Hollow Library. She was also a good customer of Urban Tales, the pet shop I'd inherited from my late Aunt Tilly. I knew Minerva had a reputation as a notorious gossip, but this tidbit really floored me. I don't think so, I stammered. Where in the world did you hear that? Her fingers fiddled with the package of catnip balls on the counter.
Oh, Jessie Longacre heard it from Sally Peabody, who heard it from Viola Kaisis. Viola said Garrett told Angelina Monroe Clarissa landed a big-name director for the production of Our Town. She didn't mention a name, but what name's bigger than Spielberg, really? And I haven't heard he's got anything new coming out now.
My mother hasn't mentioned anything about that to me, I said. And that was the truth. She hadn't said a word about finding any director, let alone Spielberg, when I'd spoken to her over a week ago. I should mention that my mother and I have never been particularly close, most likely due in part to my career choices over the past few years. In my previous life in L.A., I'd been Shell Marlowe, the star of Spy Anyone, a popular cable TV show about two married spies. Needless to say, that career choice didn't sit well with my mother, a classically trained Shakespearean actress. When the show was canceled, I wasn't certain what my future held. But then fate stepped in. My Aunt Tilly died, and not only left me her Victorian mansion, but her pet shop business as well. I wasted no time in relocating to Fox Hollow, Connecticut, and taking back my real name of Shell McMillan. My mother hadn't been crazy about my work on the spy show, and she was even less thrilled with my running a pet shop. No one had been more surprised than me, though, when she'd showed up at the shop's grand opening to support her daughter, and the shocks just kept on coming. Not only had she volunteered to take on the role of temporary theatrical manager for the Fox Hollow Players, she'd become a silent partner in Secondhand Sue's, the antique shop owned by my friend Sue Bloodgood. I'd considered backing Sue as well, but you know the old saying, you snooze, you lose. And there was no way in hell I was going into any sort of business venture with my mother. Minerva's nasal voice broke into my thoughts.
Well, no matter who she gets, it's got to be better than Perry Halloway. The man is a dolt.
Perry Halloway was Fox Hollow High's English lit teacher. She rolled her heavily made-up eyes dramatically.
You should have seen last year's production. They did Death of a Salesman. Now, don't get me wrong, Perry is a brilliant teacher, but truthfully, Ian Lewis would have been a better choice for director.
I frowned as I stuffed the catnip balls she'd purchased into a bag. Isn't Ian Lewis the high school janitor? Minerva picked up the bag and shot me a triumphant smile.
Exactly,
she said. As she swept out of the store, I reached beneath the counter for my iPhone. I pressed the speed dial button for my mother, and, as I expected, the call went to voicemail. I left a message. Mother, this is Shell. Give me a call when you get a chance. There's a crazy rumor going around that you've gotten Spielberg on board to direct the Fox Hollow Players. Clarissa knows Spielberg? I turned around at the sound of my former co-star's voice. Gary Presser had come to Fox Hollow to help out when I'd been suspected of murder a short time ago. I'd thought he'd returned to L.A. once the culprit was behind bars. Instead, he declared he'd been won over by the town and a simpler way of life, and had decided to stay on. While he searched for the perfect apartment, he was staying with me. He didn't seem to be in too much of a hurry to leave, and I had to admit the arrangement suited me just fine. Gary, believe it or not, was a regular Felix Unger around the house, and my two cats, Purday and Kahlua, had become enormously fond of his cooking, as had I, although I'd never admit that out loud. I looked straight into his big blue eyes. I greatly doubt it. Mother doesn't know half the famous people she says she does, and I'll bet a month's Urban Tales receipts she never met Steven Spielberg. Thinking of Clarissa rubbing elbows with Spielberg is a bit frightening. For Spielberg, Gary remarked with a chuckle. Poor Garrett. He had no idea what he was in for when he asked Mother to help out with a theater group. Garrett Newt, a retired accountant who served on the Fox Hollow Museum Board of Directors, was also the founder and manager of the Fox Hollow Players. He developed a bit of a crush on my mother when she was here, and my mother had played that to the hilt. As far as anything developing between the two of them, though, I felt reasonably sure that was a long shot. My parents' divorce had soured my mother on the idea of romance and men in general, and Newt, at 60+, was a confirmed bachelor. Gary moved behind the counter. The person I really feel sorry for is Sue Bloodgood. Sure, it's all roses now, but wait till your mother starts bossing her around about the antique shop. She'll be ready to dissolve the partnership like that. He snapped his fingers in the air for emphasis. I'm not so sure, I said. Sue's wanted to expand into more upscale items for a while, and my mother is very knowledgeable about antiques, which is just what Sue needs if she truly wants to expand her business. Plus, Sue's not exactly a shrinking violet. She's more than capable of standing up to my mother. I doubt that'll happen, though, I added on a sigh. The only person my mother seems comfortable bossing around is me. I think it's more likely she'll get bored after a while and want out. Gary rubbed his hands together. And once that happens, she'll be looking for an out. That will be your chance. I know you wanted to back Sue, too. I've always loved antiquing, I admitted. I used to go to auctions with my Aunt Tilly in the summers when my parents would drop me off here for a few weeks. Of course, I'm not as well versed as Mother, but I think I'm pretty good. You're very good, Gary said. Only thing, though, if you went into business with Sue, would that be considered a conflict of interest? You know, considering your relationship with her brother. I felt my cheeks start to redden. Sue's brother, Josh Bloodgood, was a homicide detective I'd recently started dating. We'd first met when I was the #1 suspect in the aforementioned murder investigation. Our relationship had gotten off to a slow start, but over the past few weeks it had gained quite a bit of momentum. I don't see how, I murmured. Anyway, I'm perfectly happy managing Urban Tales. Then, seeing the twinkle in Gary's eye, I swatted him on the arm. Oh, you're teasing me. Yeah, even you have to admit, you make it easy, he said with a laugh. He looked past my left shoulder. Isn't that right, kids? I glanced over my shoulder at the window, where my two cats, Purday and Kahlua, were lounging in the mid-afternoon sun. Kahlua had come to Fox Hollow with me from L.A. She was a pedigreed Seal Point Siamese, a gift from my mother because, as she'd put it, no daughter of hers was going to have a mutt for a pet. Purday had been my Aunt Tilly's cat. A stray, when she'd found him, he was also a pedigreed Persian, albeit one that had been through the ringer, as they say. Abandoned at a young age, he'd had to learn to fend for himself, and it had cost him his left eye. He was still a beautiful cat, though, with his long, silky white fur. My mother kept threatening to get him a velvet eye patch, but so far that hadn't happened, much to my relief. I had the notion that Purday would be none too happy about that gift. Both cats raised their heads at the sound of Gary's voice. Kahlua opened her mouth in a large, unlovely cat yawn, then put her head back down on her paws. Purday simply flopped over on his back and lay, all 4 paws up in the air. The bell above the shop door tinkled, heralding the arrival of a new customer. I looked up and saw that it was Melanie Foster. Melanie was a waitress at Tasty Bites, the local sandwich shop. I'd had several conversations with her, and we'd bonded over the fact that we were both originally from California. Melanie was also the owner of Lottie, a beautiful tan and white King Charles Cavalier Spaniel. She walked over to the counter, her pretty face split in a wide smile.
"Hi there," she said. "So, I heard your mom landed Spielberg?"
"Oh, no," I groaned as Gary started to laugh. "You've been talking to Minerva, I assume?" Melanie laughed, a high, tinkling sound.
"Oh, don't worry, Shell. No one ever believes anything Minerva says. I mean, wouldn't it be something if Spielberg actually did come to our little town? After all, you guys did," she added, throwing a flirtatious glance Gary's way.
"It sure would. It would definitely ensure Quentin Watson would be hanging around your rehearsals, hoping for a juicy tidbit for his gossip column." Watson was the editor and owner of the Fox Hollow Gazette. He and I had butted heads on more than one occasion. Melanie wrinkled her pert nose.
"That's something we can do without. We've got enough drama going on without that. That is, if we even have a production."
"Why? What do you mean?" I asked. Melanie leaned in closer to the counter.
"Not even Minerva knows this yet. Emmy Winfield bugged out at the production yesterday. Said it was too much, what with her taking extra courses at the university this year and all. She's got Professor Clowder for 2 classes, and she doesn't want to get D's. He's a tough marker."
"Oh, no," I cried. "That's a real loss. Wasn't she playing one of the main characters?"
Melanie nodded. "Emily Webb. Garrett was none too happy about her decision, but what could he do? Now he's got to scramble to find someone because Greta Poole, her understudy, quit too."
I could understand Greta up and quitting. She worked part-time at Secondhand Sue's and called in sick more often than not. She was a bit flighty and what I'd call irresponsible. The only reason Sue didn't fire her was because she was friendly with Greta's mother. That's too bad. Didn't Greta have a small role as well? I asked.
Sue nodded. "Yes, the part of Rebecca Gibbs. Garrett was pretty much beside himself, I can tell you that. He even asked me if I'd want to do either role."
I looked at her, surprised. "I didn't realize you were a member of the group."
"Oh, I'm not," she said quickly. "I confess I did try my hand at acting once, but it didn't work out. I guess I'm just not as talented as you, Shell."
"There are some who might disagree with you on that. My own mother, for instance."
"Oh, I doubt that."
Melanie waved her hand carelessly.
"Anyway, I told him thanks, but no thanks. I had enough to do since Benny put me in charge of catering the food for the cast and crew."
"I wonder if the show will be canceled now," I mused.
"I doubt it. Garrett doesn't want to. A lot of tickets have been sold. I'm sure he'll find someone. Either that or he'll put a wig on and do the parts himself."
The thought of Garrett Newt wearing makeup and a skirt made us both giggle. Melanie glanced at her watch.
"I'm on my break, so I can't stay too long. I was wondering if you had any of that king dog chow. Lottie just loves it."
"Sure, we've just got a shipment in. It's in aisle 3, I think. I'll show you," Gary offered. As Gary and Melanie walked off, I heard my cell ping with an incoming text. I picked up my phone and saw that it was from my mother. "Got your message. Everything under control. We'll be back in Fox Hollow soon. All problems solved." I frowned at the screen. All problems solved? What did that mean exactly? I slid my phone back into my purse, and another thought occurred to me. Had Garrett contacted her about his actress problems as well? "Oh, no," I muttered. "You'd better not be thinking of pressing me into service, Mother, because I'll have to respectfully decline." Then another thought struck me. Was my mother planning to take over one of the roles? I knew she was familiar with that play, having done it in summer stock several times. At 58, she was still a stunning woman, albeit a bit old to play either of those parts, although God forbid I ever come out and say that to her. Purday suddenly let out a low growl and jumped down from his perch on the windowsill. He raced into the storeroom like his tail was on fire. His sudden action didn't seem to faze Kalua, who stretched and flopped over on her side on the windowsill. "Purday," I called after the cat. "What's the matter, fella?" A loud yowl was his response. I jumped up and hurried into the storeroom, where I found Purday on his hind legs, scratching like mad against the back door. "Stop that," I admonished the cat. "Gary won't be happy to see you scratching up the door he just finished varnishing." The cat ignored me and continued to claw at the wood. I walked over and attempted to pry him away from the door, and my action was met with a low growl. I backed up, my hands in the air. Okay, but what's got you so excited?" Purday butted his head against the door. "Is something out there?" I asked, then bit my lip. It was almost as if I expected the cat to answer me. In a way, he did. He butted his head against the door again and let out a plaintive meow. I walked to the door, threw back the lock, and opened it a crack. I didn't see anything outside. I felt something furry brush my ankles, and I looked down to see Purday squeezing himself through the crack. He took off like a shot around the left side of the store. "Purday, get back here!" I raced across the large yard after the cat. I rounded the corner and paused. Purday was nowhere in sight. Swell. Then I heard a sharp meow coming from the bushes at the far end of the property. I hurried in that direction. As I got closer, I saw Purday's bushy white tail swishing impatiently to and fro. "Purday, for goodness sakes, what's gotten into you?" I approached the bushes, and Purday moved back a step. His paw snaked out, touched my ankle. "Meow," he said. This time he sounded more insistent. "You want me to look here?" I asked. The cat inclined his head. I bent down and parted the bushes, and I let out a gasp of surprise. Stretched out on the ground, one paw tangled in a vine, lay another cat. For a few moments, all I could do was stare. The cat was certainly beautiful. Her hair, although a bit matted, was long and silky, a beautiful red color. Her eyes were a brilliant gold color, and they were fixed right on me. "What's the matter, girl?" I asked. The cat was lying on her side, and the vine was wrapped around her front left paw pretty snugly. I started to tug at it, but the cat let out a meow, this one on the loud side. I just decided to go back into the shop to find something to snip the vine with when I heard a voice behind me.
"Whoa! What do we have here?"
I looked over at Gary, who'd followed me. "This is what had Purday so upset," I said. I pointed to her paw. Somehow she got herself tangled up in that vine.
"Yeah? Well, let's see if we can get you free, little lady."
Gary dropped to his knees and pulled his Swiss Army knife out of his pants pocket. In 2 deft strokes, he'd cut the offending vine. The cat meowed and tried to sit up. I saw her wobble a bit, but finally she rose to a sitting position. The offended paw she held slightly aloft. "I think she injured that paw," I said. "Maybe I should give Gretchen a call." Gretchen Walker was Fox Hollow's resident vet. As soon as I mentioned her name, Purday let out a low growl. He obviously remembered the exam and accompanying rabies shot Gretchen had given him recently. I looked at the cat. "Now be nice," I admonished him. "Your friend here needs medical attention." I leaned forward and scooped the cat up in my arms. She made no sound of protest, but rather snuggled closer to my chest. "Well behaved," I observed. "Probably someone's pet that got away." Gary reached out and patted the cat on the head. Her tongue snaked out, licked at his fingers.
"She looks valuable."
he remarked.
"She's very pretty. I've never seen a cat quite that large, though. She's bigger than Perday."
The cat definitely was an armful. "I bet she's a Maine Coon," I said. "They're the largest breed of cat. We can look it up later, though. Right now I want to get her inside and then call Gretchen." I walked back to the pet shop, Gary and Perday beside me. We entered through the back door, and I laid the cat down on the blanket that Perday and Kalua usually took afternoon naps on. The cat purred like a motor car through all this, only letting out a loud meow when I touched the injured paw. Gary went back out front to mind the shop, and Perday stretched out next to his new friend while I placed the call to Gretchen. Fortunately, the vet was in. She'd just finished up with a hamster and was just about to go to lunch. She said she'd drop by within a half hour. I hung up and then got out 2 bowls. I filled one with water, the other with some kitty chow that my own cats were fond of. I went over to the blanket and laid the bowls in front of the cat. "You must be hungry and thirsty," I said. The cat struggled to a sitting position and leaned her nose toward the bowls. She sniffed at both, then started to lap up the water. When she'd finished, she turned her attention to the other bowl. Before she hunkered down to eat, she turned her head to look at me and let out a soft meow. I smiled. "You're very welcome." I left Perday to watch over his new friend and went back out to the main shop. Gary had just finished ringing up a sale of bird seed for Polly Hodgins' parakeet. Polly saw me and gave an enthusiastic wave.
"Shell, have you heard the news?"
I sighed. "Yes, but I'm pretty sure there's no truth to it. I greatly doubt my mother knows Spielberg that well."
"Spielberg?"
Polly's brows drew together.
"I thought it was Scorsese."
I bit back a groan. Him either. After a bit more small talk, Polly took her package and left, and I cut Gary a sidelong glance. This is going from bad to worse. I wonder if Mother managed to get anyone at all.
"Oh, I'm sure she got someone,"
Gary said. He held out his smartphone.
"I was looking up Maine Coon cats on the internet. You were right. They're the largest breed of cat."
He pointed to some photos.
"Sure looks like the one you found."
I took the phone and read the article. Largest breed, soft and silky coat, lion-like ruff around the neck. Yep, it certainly sounds like that cat. The shop bell tinkled, and Gretchen, black bag in hand, walked in. "I got here as fast as I could," she said. "Where's the patient?" I took her into the storeroom. When Gretchen laid eyes on the cat, she let out a little gasp. "Oh, a Maine Coon, and what a beautiful one at that. Look at that long, silky red hair." I explained what had happened. Gretchen carefully examined the cat, speaking softly to it the whole time. After a few minutes, she rose and turned to me. "I don't think it's too serious. The paw doesn't feel swollen. The vine was wrapped tightly around it, you said?" I nodded. Gary had to cut her free. "If she was like that for a period of time, it's possible the paw's just sore. Watch her for a few days, and if you see her limping or favoring that paw, then bring her in for some x-rays. In the meantime, I've got some medicine back at the office that should help." "Great. I'll ask Robbie to pick it up on his way in for his afternoon shift." Robbie was Robert Grant, my young assistant manager. "I'm certain she's someone's pet. She's too well behaved to be a stray." "She certainly looks well cared for." Gretchen bent down and started feeling around the cat's shoulder blade. "I don't feel a microchip," she said. "They're usually embedded in the right shoulder blade. My scanner's out for repair, but when I get it back, I can scan her to be sure." "That would be great. Thanks so much, Gretchen." "No problem." She leaned down and gave the large cat a pat on her head. "Any time." After Gretchen had left, I knelt down beside the cat. "Well, at least your injury doesn't appear to be serious," I said. I reached out to stroke her soft fur, and the cat started to purr loudly. "I bet someone is really missing you, though. We'll have to try and find your owner." In the meantime, I can't keep calling you Cat.
Uh-oh, that's a mistake.
I jumped up and whirled around to face Gary. Geez, did you have to sneak up on me?
Sorry.
He held up both hands.
I just think naming the cat might not be a good idea. I know you. You'll get attached to her, and when the time comes to give her back to her owner...
Give me some credit, will you? It's the right thing to do, I said. I looked back at the blanket. Purday was giving his new friend a bath. I think if anyone would be upset at having to give up this cat, it's Purday. He's really taken a liking to her. Gary cocked his head and studied the two cats.
That he has. I wonder what Kahlua will have to say about her.
I'd forgotten about my other cat. The Siamese wasn't exactly welcoming when it came to other felines. It had taken her a bit to get used to Purday. I'll cross that bridge when I get to it, I said. For right now, though, I'm going to have to leave her here in the shop. I think it would be a bit much bringing her home. She needs to rest that paw, and I'm not sure how Kahlua will react to another female cat in the house.
Not to mention Clarissa,
Gary pointed out.
I assume she'll be staying with us when she returns?
Probably, I said, and sighed. I'm sure she'd have something to say about 3 cats in the house, although it's certainly big enough for everyone. Anyway, for now I'm going to make a corner for the princess here in the storeroom. Gary raised a brow.
The princess?
I felt color rise to my cheeks. Well, you have to admit, she looks like royalty. I figured princess is as good a name as any.
Just princess? If you're going to name the cat, then give her a decent one.
Gary walked over and looked down at the cat.
She's got such large, furry paws. How about Princess Fuzzy Paws?
I wrinkled my nose. Fuzzy paws? That sounds weird. Fuzzy head? Gary crossed his arms over his chest and frowned.
Oh, yeah, that's so much better,
he grumbled. I sighed. Okay, then how about fuzzy pants? At the last suggestion, the cat lifted her head and let out a loud meow. Gary burst out laughing.
I guess that's settled. Princess Fuzzy Pants it is.
I crossed to the desk and picked up my phone. I walked back over to the cat and took several pictures in quick succession. That should do it, I said. I'll make up some flyers we can tack up around town, and on my lunch hour I'll go down to the Gazette and put an ad in the paper. I paused. If someone is going to claim her, best they do it before Purday becomes too attached. Gary shot me a knowing look.
And you, too.
Shortly after 12, I made my way down to the Fox Hollow Gazette's offices. I pushed through the front door and walked straight through the cozy foyer-type waiting area to the reception desk, a wooden circular affair with a computer and stacks of papers on either side. The receptionist, the 50-ish June Reagan, looked up and peered at me over the rims of her granny-style wire-rimmed glasses.
Well, Shell McMillan, what brings you here?
I need to place an ad in the paper, I said. June pushed a pad in front of her and plucked a pen out of the cup beside the computer monitor.
Okay, what sort of ad? Advertisement for Urban Tales?
No, Lost and Found. As June raised an inquiring eyebrow, I added, Purday found a stray cat behind the pet shop. She looks like a valuable cat, and she's very well behaved. I'm thinking she's someone's lost pet.
Was she wearing a collar?
No.
Microchipped?
Gretchen didn't think so.
June sniffed. Most pets today are microchipped, especially if they're pedigreed. If this one's not, then maybe she was stolen from a breeder or something before she could be.
Good point. I resolved to look up breeders of Maine Coon cats when I returned to the shop. In the meantime, though, I'd like to place the ad, just in case. I dictated a short ad to June, then pulled out my phone and showed her the pictures I'd taken.
She sure is beautiful, June declared. I bet her owner is really missing her. We'll run the ad, starting tomorrow. Then, if that doesn't bring any results, we can always do a feature story in our Pet Corner section.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?